Welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes. So, what's your story?
Um, Not sure where to start. So I'm a life coach, an intuitive life coach. So I use my intuition to decide where to guide my clients and how to work with them during a session. And the type of clients that I work with are empaths and highly sensitive people. And I help them to build healthy boundaries, to protect their energy, um, to know how to use their gifts as an empath or a highly sensitive person and how to manage their emotions. And in general, how to have better relationship with themselves and with other people.
Mm, mm. What empaths?
Empaths are people who feel very deeply and are sensitive to everything around them. So often sensitive to other people's energy, other people's moods, the weather, like any change in energy. It can be quite overwhelming for them to be in crowds. Um, but this is if they haven't learned how to have those boundaries against external forces. So that's something that I can help them to learn to do, is how to separate their own energy from external forces and how to not absorb other people's feelings.
Mm. How to not absorb other people's feelings. So, this is something that they usually deal with.
Yeah, so empaths get drained very quickly, especially in an environment with negative people or someone that's in a bad mood, because they'll be able to perceive it without, verbal communication, and they will absorb that energy and almost mirror what the other person is feeling, and that's like an automatic response. But there is a way to not absorb that energy and to just stay grounded, stay in your own energy, and realize which feelings are yours versus which feelings are someone else's.
Mm, mm. Okay. So, how do you know you're an empath? Like, how would you be able to define this superpower almost?
It's for me because I'm an empath. It's something that I've known for a very, very long time, but I didn't have a name for it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I knew that if I walked into a room and someone was in a bad mood, I'd instantly know.
Mm,
If someone was happy, I'd become happy. If someone was sad, I'd become sad.
mm,
And even if someone wasn't communicating to me from across a room, I'd be able to feel how they're feeling. Um, and also just getting very overwhelmed with things. For instance, when I was at school and would be in between lesson changes, everyone was in the corridor at the same time, and the amount of energy coming from all the different people was just difficult to deal with.
mm.
Um, but yeah, so I didn't have a word for it until a bit later in life, when actually my sister said to me, "Oh, have you heard of this term called an empath? Because I think I'm one and I think you are too." And then there was a lot of reading material online, so I had to look into it and basically ticked all of the boxes, and it kind of made sense to me.
Mm. So, as an empath, one of the first things to kind of know is, who am I? Right. Okay, I'm an empath. Recognize that. So does that help you in realizing why you are the way you are?
Yeah, it was validating to hear that it's just a way of being, and it's not that something was wrong with me.
Mm,
It's just that I have a different way of being, and I have these extrasensory perceptions that people necessarily don't have. And they might not understand it,
mhm,
um, but then it's okay. It's okay to be that way, and it's okay to have this weird perception and way of being,
mm,
because that's just who I am, and it turns out that it's just a sort of person that I am.
mm. Now, what's the biggest problem people face as empaths?
Being drained,
Mm,
energetically being drained, and then it manifesting as, chronic fatigue physically as well.
mm,
So as an empath, you want people to be happy all the time, because of course you do. If you're around negative people and you absorb their emotions, you don't want that. So you want to make them happy.
So that you can,
Um, so that we can be happy, exactly. Because if we're going to be surrounded by happy people, we'll take on those emotions and be happy too. Um, so yeah, they're the biggest people pleasers probably in the world, and they want to give all the time. And they always put themselves last, typically. They don't necessarily know that they're doing it, but they will always say yes to people. They find it very hard to say no, and they will always offer their services. They will always offer to give favors, to help people, without even being asked, because they just want to help, and they want to help make the world a better place, and they want to help make people happy. But at the end of the day, they end up being incredibly drained because they don't leave any energy for themselves. And I always have this metaphor of, it's like having a cup of water, and that cup of water is your energy, and you need to keep it full. And then anybody else can have any water that overflows from that cup. But if you don't keep it full, then you don't have enough energy for yourself. And if you keep letting other people drink from it, eventually it will be empty. And you'll suffer physically, and you'll have to find ways to refill it, but it's more difficult.
What made you want to do this, right? What made you want to help other empaths?
I know the struggles, and I know what it's like to feel misunderstood, or to feel different, or to have these kind of relationships where people take advantage of your kind nature. And empaths are very prone to being in toxic relationships with the narcissists, or with people that gaslight, or any type of manipulative person that would take advantage. We're just very susceptible to that sort of thing, and it's something that I've been through as well. So coming out of relationships like that, and healing from that, and breaking the pattern, and breaking the people pleasing pattern, I have all this first-hand experience of how I've helped myself. And actually it was a life coach that helped me a lot with that as well, which is why I wanted to become a life coach, so that I have the skills and now the knowledge and experience to be able to help other people in the same position.
Wow. So you mentioned something about toxic relationship. Is that something you went through at some point?
Yeah, so I had a really badly toxic relationship for 5.5 years, and there was gaslighting. He was a narcissist, kind of broke me emotionally and mentally, made me feel like I was completely useless, completely worthless. Nothing I did was good enough. And he just took so much from me energetically. I had literally nothing left. And yeah, it took a really long time to recover from that. And it took a lot of deep inner healing work, and it took a lot of time. But the problem was that after that relationship, I went straight into another one, which wasn't quite so bad, but it was with another person that took advantage of me. And I would give and give and give, and he would just continue to take and push my boundaries. And I didn't really have much in the way of boundaries. So yeah, he just took until the very end, and then left. So breaking that pattern is so important, so that people don't end up back where they were in the same cycle.
So leaving you now, I mean, there's one thing for them to leave, but another thing now for them to leave, leaving you feeling what just happened. Like, I mean, there's one thing for you to say, wake up one day and go, you know what, I'm leaving. I've had enough. I'm done. I'm gone. But it's another. It's when they leave, it's like, okay, all of after everything, you're still the one leaving. Like, it's almost like there's nothing more to take. Like, how did you feel when all of that was happening?
Devastated. So the first relationship that was the really bad one, I ended up leaving that one. And that was because I had become so low. I was so depressed. And then I went and had some counseling and realized that it was actually just entirely tied to him. So I was strong enough to leave that one. But this other relationship that I had, he left me for another woman, and I just was like, I'm not good enough. I'm so not good enough, because everything I gave, and I gave everything, wasn't good enough. Um, but after doing the healing work, I realized that it doesn't matter how much you give to somebody, you can't buy somebody's love. And ultimately, I was not putting myself first ever. So I wasn't happy on my own. I was very codependent, and he wasn't happy taking things from me, but he would continue to do so anyway. So yeah, the dynamic of the situation was not very good, and it was quite toxic, even though it wasn't as bad as the previous relationship I had. But yeah, I felt awful, and now I feel a lot better.
Now you want to help people. Who are you trying to help now? You're trying to help people who are already in these toxic situations and they are empaths trying to get out, or you're trying to help people who are out of these situations, or maybe the people who are empaths and you're trying to save them before they get into these situations. Or your message is
So
for.
yeah, if somebody identifies as a highly sensitive person or an empath, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be in those toxic relationships. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have been. But I would like to help them in any kind of situation or relationship that they have, or will have, and to break any patterns that are around giving too much of their own energy away, or absorbing too much of other people's emotions.
So your work is not centered around situations; it's centered around who they are and who they are.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's not centered around the relationship specifically. It's just an element that will be affected
Yeah.
once they learn how to put their boundaries up and maintain and protect their own energy.
Mm. So the people, I mean, we're speaking about the people who are coming to you and what that made you really even want to do this. What are they really saying? Like, what's their cry?
A lot of them will say that they're drained, that they feel really stressed or ill because they've been stressed. Some people have said that they recognize the people pleasing within themselves, and they don't want to keep doing that because they're drained. So yeah, it's this running theme of feeling drained all the time, feeling tired of everything, feeling drained, feeling like nothing they do is good enough, and they'll never get to where they want to be. Yeah, that's the main theme.
And what would be your message to the empath, the sensitive people?
That there's nothing wrong with them, that they have these gifts or extra abilities that some people don't have, but a lot of people will identify with them, and there are others out there with the same kind of skills. And once they can learn to embrace them and control them, they become much less of a burden, because a lot of empaths and highly sensitive people will be told that they're too sensitive, they're too emotional, they need to get it together. People don't understand why they get overwhelmed easily. So, the first thing I would say is, you're normal, you're fine. This is just something about you, and it's not weird, and it's not
Mm.
uncommon necessarily. It's just who you are.
Mm. Wow. And for those who want to work with you, how can people work with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
People can connect with me on Facebook, through Facebook Messenger. I also offer free calls to people if they want to talk about their issues, their particular struggles. And we can have just a 30-minute chat to go through anything that's bothering them. And so I can offer them help, and let them know if it's something that I can help with, and whether I have the right tools for them.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so it's great. It's great to have you today, and it's great to have you. Be not only helping these people in the world. Someone was telling me there's about 20% of people who are highly sensitive of the entire population, but you're also a voice and you stand for these people. So I love what you do. And hope to have you here soon again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.